Welcome back to DWeb Decoded, a podcast by Filecoin Foundation that explores the intersection of blockchain and the data economy. I'm your host, Aaron Stanley, and our guest today is Kristina Cornèr, who's head of strategy and partnerships at Exponential Science, which is focusing on furthering the use of blockchain, DLT, and AI in the scientific community. Many of you may also know Kristina from her time as Editor-in-Chief at Cointelegraph as well. So we'll be diving into all that today. Kristina, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Aaron. Happy to be here.
Amazing. So to get started, why don't you give us the elevator pitch for Exponential Science? Tell us about what you all are building.
Sure. This is actually very exciting, and I'm very glad to get back to this academic roots because I'm personally an eternal student, and I'm now surrounded by a group of visionary scientists who are turning fundamental science into new ventures, discoveries, and projects that unite different communities in the space. So the focus in terms of topics is a convergence of blockchain, AI, deep tech, quantum computing, and other emerging technologies. And there are different projects that are bringing forward research and selecting this research in order to make some commercially viable, compliant, sustainable initiatives that help building the more sustainable and good technological future for all of us.
Amazing. Well, that's very exciting. Looking forward to diving into some of that here today in our conversation. So you started off as an academic, kind of an academic world, then you ended up at, summarizing your career trajectory here. You wound up you're at Cointelegraph for several years. You were most recently editor-in-chief there. And then now you've returned to sort of the academic science side of things, which is super exciting. But I'd love for you to maybe just give us a few minutes and just talk about a bit about your career trajectory here and how, like, what motivates you, what excites you, and how did you end up in this particular spot with the Exponential Science?
Sure. Thank you very much for this question. I guess my biggest advantage, but also disadvantage, has always been that I have had so many different interests. And I'm very passionate about inspirational people and their energy. And this is how I ended up in tech, because tech is full of people who, build up something new, ambitious, courageous. I've worked, before joining blockchain sphere, I worked in energy sector a lot. Green technologies, energy efficiency, new tech. I was organizing big events, Global Entrepreneurship Congress, different tech roundtables, discussions across different sectors. And then in 2017, I discovered blockchain, and it was a very interesting revelation and also a very interesting moment. And this is how I ended up being part of this journey as well. But my passion has always been storytelling. And I'm passionate about people who are building this and trying to understand their story and then translate it into languages that are then understood by different communities, by different also linguistical realities and different backgrounds, because there are people who are sometimes a bit too biased of the community that they are part of. And I think the most exciting thing in communications in tech is actually mixing up these communities and tell one community about another one.
I love that. And in your time at Cointelegraph, how were you able to kind of like manifest that, right? Because you had this really great position of where you're able to help really communicate the stories behind not just the tech, but the people building the tech. And then you had kind of on the community building side, you're able to really, be able to meet a lot of these people face to face who are building and really just kind of see like where the sweet spot is as far as like, how does this stuff get applied? Like, what are some of the challenges we're facing? What's actually interesting about this versus maybe some of the hype? Maybe reflect on that a little bit. Like what was maybe the kind of the most exciting part of like that role at the, running the newsroom at what's one of the top kind of crypto Web3 media publications?
Sure. I guess I could start with the contrast of what I had been doing before joining journalism in blockchain. It was journalism in other tech, and this was very limited in terms of which people you had access to, because a lot of big tech corporations at the time were pretty bureaucratized. So when I joined Cointelegraph, the most amazing thing was that you had direct access to founders, CEOs, and those people who basically at one moment had a crazy idea and then they made some crazy efforts in order to carry out a project based on this idea. So for me, I guess the most inspiring part of this all was talking about their story, because behind every project there is a story of a person who had a dream or who wanted to solve a concrete problem that he, she, or their community had and encountered. And the tech development basically served to solve this issue. It could be financial inclusion issue, it could be distribution of wealth issue, it could be creative economy issue, it could be whatever else. And I think these stories that sometimes are not communicated that well, in my opinion. We are tending to sort of overcomplicate our language with terms and concepts that are, that sound smart, but they are not relatable. And I think this is maybe still the biggest problem of the blockchain industry. I think the more we create the stories that relate to normal people, and this can happen only when we also talk to them as normal people. Every normal people has their dreams, their issues, and their desires.
Yeah, it is interesting. You do see this tendency in the blockchain world of, it's like kind of the ivory tower effect, where people kind of they like to sort of say like, oh, look at how smart we are. We're using these like really big terms that nobody else understands, and even the other people in crypto like don't understand, because what we're doing is just like so sophisticated and we're so smart. And it's, I guess maybe it's, it is like interesting work that they're doing, but it also makes it, if other people in crypto can't understand what you're talking about, there's no way that like a normal person's going to understand what you're talking about either, right? So
there's not only blockchain industry, like now that I'm thinking, sustainability as well is a very complicated dictionary, while actually it's about the planet and us on this planet, just, living our life to the best of the capacities of the space that we have. The same relates to academia. I mean, they are all amazing, but they are used to talk to the people with a certain level of education. And it's not good or bad. It's just a fact of their biography. But sometimes to translate a report or research to people who are not part of academia, you actually need to use totally different language. And this is something that is very exciting for me, and also to learn more and maybe to teach something in terms of story.
That's amazing. Well, yeah, I love how where you're coming from, because you have a passion for on the storytelling side, but you also have a passion on the the learning and the content and the academia side, and you've been able to kind of fuse those two things, right?
Okay, so basically I have two academic degrees, but they are not related to technology. So one is languages, ancient Greek and Latin, and literature and theater. And second is political science, international relations.
Amazing.
So amazing. I guess storytelling in its,
Well, we should have done this podcast in Greek then, huh? Maybe.
Cool.
We'll get one of the AI translators to mimic my voice while you could speak. Yeah. But well, anyway, let's talk a bit more about what you're doing. You're working on at the moment with Exponential Science, and we've been talking about kind of in Filecoin land, and also just across crypto more broadly. This term decentralized science, DeSci, is one that, as it floats around. There's a variety of different initiatives being kind of undertaken on this front. And I guess I don't know if you guys necessarily define yourselves as like DeSci or not, but you're kind of trying to leverage some of these technologies to further scientific development and improve the scientific process. But maybe just talk a bit about kind of where you guys are coming from on that front, and what's kind of the essence of like, some of the core operating principles and what you're trying to accomplish.
Sure. I think DeSci is a term that definitely is perfect for what people like Exponential Science members are doing. But also it got born later on, in terms of the developments that were related to exponential science. So Exponential Science is a foundation that was founded by two visionary professors and digital economists and scientists, Paolo Tasca and Michiel Vadgama. And basically it builds up on a legacy that has been created with years in different projects in DLT, AI, with the Center for Blockchain Technologies at UCL in London, with different initiatives with regulators across the world, central banks, digital assets research, and on working on convergence of different technologies across communities and across projects. I think the value there is to look at the academic research through different perspectives. When fundamental research is given freedom to do whatever the inspiration and the brain action is moving towards, and at the same time to find commercially viable or improving the current ecosystem features that could be used for the industry in general. So I think this perspective is pretty unique. Basically, you combine this world that is pretty closed, that is research, science, academia, with the industry, and create this dialogue where academia is sharing their perspective, the business is sharing their issues and their desires, and somewhere in between lies this amazing convergence and synergy.
And that's really where you all are trying to position yourselves, as being almost kind of the matchmakers to some extent, but at least being the forum where these types of conversations can take place.
Well, the forum and also the decision maker and actor, basically, because the Exponential Science team is turning some of the researches and scientific developments into concrete ventures and projects.
Amazing. And then maybe talk a bit more about what your role is. Like, what are you focusing on? How are you spending most of your time?
So we've been collaborating with Paolo Tasca and the team long before I joined, because I was really passionate about what they were doing, fundamental research and really questions and ideas that were not born by the news of today or yesterday, but of a question that, relates to where are we actually going in 10, 20, 50 years. So something really out of the box. So I was always following them, and we were collaborating. I was participating in some of the events, and then this idea of me joining was born out of the necessity, I guess, to create a narrative around this, because there is so much, but it's also not that simple to translate it into a mainstream narrative. So we started in October building up this new Exponential Science brand with its identity, visual, and also message-wise. And we created a marketing communication PR team that is building up content, events, and different strategic narrative building activities. And then my role here is to make sure that the strategy is aligned with the narrative that we are building internally and externally, and also to build up partnerships that are meaningful for exponential science in particular, and for the academic and scientific community in general.
Got it. And then what do these partnerships look like? Like what types of groups have you been working with or talking to, or are you looking to potentially work with?
Well, I guess, there is never a bad partner. I think the world is based on partnerships, and people are human because they are interacting. So there's always something lying in every communication. What we are searching for, obviously, is the support from both the businesses that are related to blockchain, AI, deep tech, quantum, and we are helping them identifying, selecting those directions that are needed in order to make sure that the scalability, the sustainability, the overall approach is scientifically viable as well. So we're providing this type of research. And it could be for those actors in the space that are already pretty experienced, and also for those who are just starting their way. So in order to make sure whether you need a blockchain implication, an application, or AI integrated into your project, scientific perspective is really very useful because we have access to data, to risk metrics that nobody in the space has. It is following the concrete methodology that is built up not on a just open source media platform, which usually the people in the space are using, but based on research, fundamental research, and a team of researchers who are constantly reviewing these methodologies. Then obviously we are working a lot with regulators. For example, one of the projects that we are working on is MiCA Crypto Alliance. So it's compliance consulting and compliance alliance for MiCA framework in Europe.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, and it's using another partner of ours that is Nodians in order to make sure that the data that is this compliance is based on is ESG, sustainability, and other risk metrics transparent.
Well, that's interesting. Maybe let's kind of piggyback on that and talk a bit more about some maybe specific projects that you've either you're supporting or you're funding via grants, or maybe particular verticals that you're. It seems like you have a number of sustainability projects, but would love to maybe kind of get some more color on what are the types of projects you guys are specifically focusing on or looking to focus on moving ahead.
Well, I guess data is something that is extremely important for the space as well, because we are, and this is what I've experienced in my role of a journalist, basically, that in order to make sure that we trust data, we need to make sure that this data is backed by real value and is constantly reviewed. So, for example, one of the projects that we are working a lot on is sustainability metrics, the LT Earth project, and also Nodians that I mentioned. So these metrics span multiple dimensions, and they span across environmental impact, governance, decentralization, community health, financial vulnerability, technical robustness, etc. And this is how different protocols and blockchains get approach to this data. So what is very interesting for us is to produce also targeted reports and researches comparing relating to the news, but comparing the infrastructure behind those, because sometimes the teams behind the projects do not have time or resources, to get this additional sort of audit. So, like which stablecoin is more liquid, which regulation to mining ecosystems is more productive in terms of sustainability, et cetera, et cetera. This kind of questions that we are asking.
Well, it seems like some of I was just looking through your website, some of the projects you guys have been supporting and some of the grants you've been giving out or the projects you're looking to fund seem like the type of questions that they're almost kind of like public goods in a sense, where maybe these aren't maybe necessarily things that like an individual company would necessarily, or if an individual company maybe commissioned the study, it wouldn't really have a whole lot of like credibility, maybe because it's, kind of obviously biased, but at least having somebody who's maybe like a bit more neutral,
Well, no, I wouldn't say that, because I mean, if you're working with a company directly, then it may be not a public report, it may be, a private report, but it's still based on the same methodology and approach, scientific approach. And actually, if you identify a flaw in the protocol or some issue that can be then resolved through some technology development, I think this is extremely useful for the community. And this is, it's like investigation in journalism, but then you use it not with a goal of expose somebody, but rather to help them, basically. So it's like white hacking.
Yeah, so it's like a vicarious learning type of type of situation, right? Where like I saw one of the grants that you're looking to I don't know if you couldn't tell if you'd already funded this or if it's something you're looking to fund, but it was something about using like Raspberry Pi computers as a way to for like blockchain consensus education purposes. So like you could use these in a classroom to kind of demonstrate how you form consensus with the various nodes on the chain. I was like, wow, that's actually a really cool way to like teach this. Is like we each have our own little computers and we kind of run our own little mini blockchain, and that's a much probably more effective way of maybe demonstrating this than just reading some. Like just looking at some diagrams on a PowerPoint presentation or something, right? So anyway, I mean, some of these things are like things that are like, oh, that's really unique, but like these are things that would have a very like universal applicability, so that a lot of people could benefit from these types of projects, so like almost public goods in a sense. And then I would be interested in kind of switching gears slightly here. I'd be interested in getting your thoughts on just how do you see like how does the scientific community, just generally at large view all of these technologies that we're kind of like immersed in on a daily basis, and maybe we're sort of knee deep in, but science is perhaps maybe not as quite immersed in like blockchain and AI and quantum and all these kind of things that as folks like us are perhaps. But what's been the scientific community's response to like some of these ideas? Like, hey, we need to start exploring this, like utilizing this tech more. To improve our processes and our workflows and things. Like, what's been the general response? Is this something people are excited about, or are people kind of like, I'm not really sure about this, don't really know enough about it yet? What's been the response?
Well, I guess both. And I mean, it's like any community, then you can see differences inside. So obviously there is skepticism as everywhere, but also there is big knowledge from some of the actors. One, for example, of the initiatives that we are working with and helping its development is UK Centre for Blockchain Technologies. It's basically a national hub that is consisted of different founding members from Oxford, Birmingham, and UCL. And for me, the idea is also bringing knowledge inside the universities and academia, and teach and show the value not only to the outside world, but also to the students who are maybe coming and maybe skeptical about something right now, but that they see that it's becoming more and more of a normality, and this is, I think, extremely important. But those people who are working with us, they have been experimenting with blockchain focused research for years. So when they started, and they are now telling a lot of anecdotes, like how much skepticism they got. But I think as we had also in business, right? And then when the hype got to a certain degree, then I guess what happened with the blockchain community is that half of it basically, and maybe even more, just doesn't understand the technology at all. And they are there because of this hype and because this offered them an opportunity to make money, while initially the idea was basically redistribute the wealth, right, and provide more financial inclusion to people in different communities that had sort of limited opportunities in this regard. So sometimes I think that mainstreamization is like obviously is a great thing and it helps us, but it also provides some damage because of these initial values that are changing because of it. So here again, academic perspective gives sort of additional value and validity, and it helps maybe bring more reputation to the industry. And I think this is a great synergy that could be developed here as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think there's definitely a lot of potential for synergy here, and a lot of at least in theory, seem to be low-hanging fruit use cases. These things are always harder in real life than in theory, I guess. But like on that question, I mean, how do you see, whether we're talking about blockchain or even just decentralized systems more broadly, like what role do these like really play in enabling, if we're going to use the DeSci term, like it really enabling DeSci or just, really kind of improving scientific, we'll just say like improving scientific research as it exists currently, right? Mm-hmm. Opening things up. What are some of these, what are some of the benefits here? Maybe whether it's like access to funding, right? Obviously financing, like somebody has to pay for this research, right? Whether it's a government or private or whether it's like peer review or in like replication of studies. Obviously I think most of us are probably familiar with like the replication crisis where it's, like 50% of scientific studies can't be replicated for one reason or another, which is not good. Or maybe it's just like access to data. Like some of the reasons these studies can't be replicated is because the data is all living and it's housed in some, fire like siloed place that nobody else can access. So I can't replicate it if I don't have the data. But maybe talk a bit about just how do you see these decentralized systems, maybe in these technologies, like really improving kind of the daily kind of bread and butter work of scientific research?
Yeah, sure. I think, there is a like technical and social implications of the term, but they both get to the same idea of accessibility, what you said. So it's, in the end of the day, it's like inclusion, but replicated in the scientific world, meaning that maybe those communities or those scientists that were a bit working in a silo now have this opportunity to get access to a broader network of research access, grant access, funding access, etc., but also being more part of the united ecosystem that is extremely important, and be aligned, especially when we are building a decentralized framework. Like this is decentralized, but it's also united. We cannot build million of different decentralized metaverses. In the end of the day, there should be one framework that sort of unites it all. And this is where DeSci helps sort of unifying it across the board.
Amazing. And then maybe to wrap up here, let's talk a bit more about just what's on your roadmap. What should we be expecting to see from Exponential Science over the next 6-12 months? Anything exciting you want to plug or that we should be looking out for?
Sure. We are working a lot with our researchers and scientists to provide some new researches and reports. So keep an eye on that. We're working also with our partners, who are Hedera, Ripple, and other big players in the space, in order to make sure that we are organizing selected way of looking at the development on the blockchains. Meaning that we organize hackathons, we organize workshops for students who want to start building something on blockchain. And I think this bridging, of academic students, communities, and business is extremely important here, because this is, in the end, not only research, pure research, but it's actually the future of our business industries and the future of entrepreneurship. We will be having interesting events as well. We are preparing an Exponential Science Festival this year that will be showcasing different scientific developments in a more sexy way, than usually maybe academic workshops have in terms of approach. We are also preparing a 11th financial peer-to-peer financial systems workshop that is taking place every year in a different central bank. So I hope to be sharing good news very soon on where we will be holding the next one. And there are also a lot of small events and gatherings that are important for us, because this is helping us curating the network that is always on the convergence of different tech, but also different communities, meaning regulators, businesses, nonprofits, along with the academia and scientists and researchers.
That's great. Well, it's exciting. Looking forward to seeing how this all unfolds over the course of the year, and wishing you success. And then any other calls to action? Like, are there folks? What type of folks should be getting in touch with you if they listen to this and they find it interesting? Like, or I guess, how can folks find you? And then, like, what types of folks are you really excited to be talking to? Whether
well, we're open to all kind of folks. Like, if you're a student or a young researcher and you have a paper that you want to share, we have call for papers, awards, annual, different industries, and this is definitely something that we are very interested in. Also, if you're a startup based on a research, we are very much interested in collaborating. Also, if you are searching for research and reports based on what you are doing as a big or small or medium corporation, and if you want to see how you can integrate AI, blockchain, and deep tech in general in your business with the wisest way and the simplest way possible based on scientific research, we're very welcoming any collaboration. And then just let's hang on. And I think, bringing together different ideas is always a great way of building up something new. Because what is important is to be able to look at the world through the eyes, not only of yourself, but of the others around. So please reach out to me and to my colleagues. We'll be happy to see what we can do together.
That's great. Well, Kristina, like, super inspiring work you're doing. This is super interesting, super exciting. Like, really, it's just amazing to see folks really sort of like joining forces and really plowing ahead on this front of just really trying to, kind of be that bridge, be the convening force, and really just, pushing these technologies into the world of science and just trying to support folks who are interested in this area. So, really exciting work you guys are doing. I really appreciate you coming on the show today to tell us about it. And wishing you all the best success in 2025.
Thank you very much. Idem to you, Aaron. This year definitely will be a year of new discoveries and ventures. So let it be successful for us as well. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you next time on DWeb Decoded.